For decades, Superman has stood as the ultimate symbol of strength. Faster than a speeding bullet, more powerful than a locomotive, this wasn't just a tagline, it was the very essence of who he was. A hero whose might wasn't only physical but moral, ideological, and cultural. Yet, here we are in James Gunn's new vision of the character, and many fans across the board are saying one thing: this Superman feels weak. Too weak. And that immediately sparks a much larger question. What does it mean when the strongest hero alive suddenly feels ordinary? And when you look at James Gunn's Superman, you can see how that could be a problem. Let's start by looking at where Superman has always drawn his strength from. It's not just his heat vision or his ability to bench press a planet from his power source being the sun, but Superman's power has always been the canvas for his hope, his compassion, his unshakable will to do the right thing, even when it cost him. Hope has always been his greatest strength, not simply optimism but the audacity to believe in a better tomorrow, even when the odds are against him. From the very first comic, the mythology was about him being larger than life, almost untouchable in the way he handled threats. And across film history, we have seen this idea reinforced again and again. Christopher Reeve's Superman was practically flawless, a beacon who could reverse time itself. There is no Superman who has ever reached such feats, especially when it comes to live action. Henry Cavill's Superman in Snyder's vision was a godlike figure tested against world-shattering threats and standing tall as humanity's last hope. These were characters written and portrayed as extraordinary. Even if flawed on a personal level, they were never weak. So when James Gunn introduces a Superman who struggles, who gets hit, who stumbles, who bleeds, it shakes something deep within the audience. And I want to be clear, weakness here doesn't just mean physical weakness. It's not simply about him losing fights or not benching skyscrapers. It's about the way the film frames him as vulnerable, humanized almost to a fault. He is written to be fallible in ways that feel jarring, because the standard has always been godhood. Fans are reacting to this not just because they are Snyder loyalists or nostalgic for Reeve, it's because it challenges the decades of storytelling tradition, and for many it undermines the foundation of Superman's character. Now, is there a value to a weaker Superman? Oh yes, absolutely. It's the one reason that I love this movie. I personally do not necessarily have an issue with Superman being a little bit weaker. Making him vulnerable can highlight the core humanity that's always been at the heart of the character. It can draw a drama, make battles feel more suspenseful, and remind audiences that even the greatest hero alive has to fight to the nail to win. And that was clear in James Gunn's Superman, especially with his fight with Ultraman or the giant kaiju. There's an argument that the weaker Superman is more relatable. Superman who reflects our own struggles and doubts, who isn't always assured of victory but still chooses to stand up. That's where Gunn clearly leans, human first, alien second. And in that vulnerability, the film reminds us that Superman's greatest strength has never been how hard he hits. It's the hope he carries for others. Even when he's battered, even when he bleeds, he doesn't give up. His hope is what makes his weakness bearable and what can make him inspiring. But here's where the problem comes in. Superman's strength has never been about relatability. If we want characters that represent relatability, we have Spider-Man or even Batman. Superman has always been about aspiration. He was always meant to be larger than life, the figure who shows us not how we are, but who we could be. So when Gunn scales that back, when Superman feels just like another hero in the lineup, no longer invincible, no longer unmatched, it risks diluting the very thing that makes him special. And audiences are picking up on that. They feel, whether consciously or not, that a weaker Superman doesn't inspire the same awe. It doesn't give you the chills when he flies into the frame. Because in the back of your mind, you're thinking, wait, he could lose this. And probably will. Take Cavill's Superman in Man of Steel. Whether you loved or hated that interpretation, there was no doubt he was an unstoppable force. His fights were titanic, godly, destructive, and yes, maybe if he had scaled back the property damage or actually gave a damn about saving lives rather than horror farming every chance he got, it would have been a little more appreciated. But nonetheless, you believed he was the most powerful being on Earth. Contrast that with James Gunn's Superman, who spends much of the runtime not only struggling but questioning himself. sometimes even doubting whether he belongs in the role at all. This isn't just a physical downgrade, it's a psychological one, and it makes you wonder if Superman doesn't believe he's Superman. Why should we? And yes, I feel like him being demotivated because of his parents' true message makes sense in this scenario, so we can't really hold that against him. But this still brings us to the bigger issue. What does this mean for the DCU moving forward? Gunn is building a connected universe, and Superman is its foundation. If you start with a Superman who is narratively framed as weaker, every villain that follows has to be recalibrated. Talk about characters like Brainiac, Darkseid, Doomsday. They all risk being too overwhelming for a Superman who can't convincingly dominate even mid-tier threats. It changes the stakes entirely. Either Gunn has to artificially scale Superman up later, which risks inconsistency, or he has to keep watering down his villains to match this weaker Superman, which makes the universe feel smaller. But let's be fair, James Gunn's intention isn't to shrink Superman, but to rebuild him. Maybe this weaker Superman is a starting point, a version of Clark who hasn't yet grown into the legend we know. If that's the case, then Gunn is asking us for patience, to watch as this Superman earns his place in the pantheon, as he gradually rises from weak to strong. And there is something poetic about that. After all, myths aren't born overnight, heroes aren't perfect from the beginning. But again, the question remains, is that what audiences want from Superman? Or do they want the god, the titan, the ideal right out of the gate? And don't get it twisted, I'm not implying the Snyderverse Superman, absolutely not, as I have qualms with that one too, and even made a whole video talking about his problems, which are a lot. The answer to that, however, lies in expectation. Batman can start broken, traumatized, and grow into a figure of fear. Spider-Man can start clumsy, irresponsible, and become the friendly neighborhood hero. But Superman, his story has always been different. He isn't a character we want to see crawling before he can fly. He's the character who's supposed to soar from the moment he takes off. Weakness can be a theme, but when it defines the character, it reshapes the myth into something unfamiliar. And that's the big problem with James Gunn's Superman. Not that he's weak in the literal sense, but that Gunn's framing of weakness challenges the very archetype of who Superman is supposed to be. It makes us ask uncomfortable questions. Is it still Superman if he isn't the strongest? Can a fallible, fragile Superman still inspire us the way he always has? Or is this a reinterpretation that, while bold, risks losing what made him iconic in the first place? And basically, every tweet I read about what people think about James Gunn's Superman, or what my close friends or family who know how much I actually like this movie, what they think of it, is always the same thing. The movie is great, the action is phenomenal, and it is an hilarious movie, but they always ask this one question: why is he so weak? The film leaves us with those questions dangling, and maybe that's Gunn's intention. Maybe the goal is to spark debate, to make us interrogate our own relationship with strength, power, and myth. But until this version of Superman shows us that he can stand shoulder to shoulder with his predecessors, fans will continue to see him as something less, something weaker. And when it comes to Superman, being weak, even thematically, isn't just a character choice, it's a problem that cuts right to the heart of what makes him Superman at all. Because in the end, Superman has always been more than his powers. His hope, the thing that burns brighter than his heat vision or his fist, has always been what sets him apart. But without the strength, without that unshakable presence, he risks becoming just another hero in a crowded universe. And that's the paradox James Gunn has created. A Superman who is more human, more vulnerable, more grounded, but maybe, just maybe, a little bit too weak. And I get it, it makes for a compelling story, and I love that. But let's not forget, even the versions Gunn draws inspiration from, like the Kingdom Come or All-Star Superman, still portray Clark as immensely powerful. The difference is, those stories weren't about showcasing his raw feats of strength. They were about how the strength ripples morally, shaping the people and world around him. But opinions are opinions. Let me know yours in the comments. Do you like a weaker, more relatable Superman, or prefer a more powerful one? And if you enjoyed this video or gained anything from it, feel free to drop a like and subscribe so you don't miss any future uploads or just to help grow the channel. But that's it for me today. Until next time, I'm out.